to the Hawkins Do Copy podcast. My name is Ren.
And my name is Emily, and in this podcast we talk about all things Stranger Things.
Today we are starting a new series on this channel.
Another new series on the podcast. We are coming back to the other ones. We promise. Next week we are coming back to the one in our themes. But
yes,
we're very excited for today.
We are, more new series than Netflix. So,
we were working out the other day that between season 3 and season 4, we would have had 3 Stranger Things days, presuming that season 4 doesn't come out before the 6th of November, which it won't.
We're not getting season 4 before the 6th of November.
2022, I'm calling it. I mean, I'm happy to be pleasantly surprised, but I won't be.
No, it'll be next year. It'll be early next year, I think.
Yeah.
So this series, what is it all about?
We're talking about the characters and doing character studies, and it's going to be really cool. And we're going to give screen time or audio time, I guess, to characters that are maybe not as appreciated, and then our fan favorites. And it's just going to be a really fun time.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the Joyce Byers episode.
Naturally.
Yeah, just, I'm in my element when I can just sit and talk about Joyce Byers all day. So I'm very excited for that episode. And I think it would be really cool as well to talk about characters that we don't normally talk a lot about, and not because we deliberately avoid them, but like characters, even characters such as like Mr. Clark, for example. Maybe we should give Mr. Clark a whole episode, I feel like
Owens.
Sam Owens.
Sam
Owens, a fabulous character, and I feel like it would be really cool to kind of dive into them. And then also it would be kind of cool to dive into some of the like villain characters, like give Brenner a whole episode and do a character study on Brenner and what he's like as a person. So I think it would be really cool, and I love like the idea of delving into these characters because ultimately they're what make the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who are we starting with, Emily?
I mean, it's a very unappreciated character. Not necessarily a fan favorite, just, he's been through a lot. He's been through some struggles, and you could say he was neglected in season 3 and was written out at episode 3, but that's just my opinion. We're going to be talking about my boy, Will Byers.
It's about Will. Will fell off his bike. Will Byers. Will Byers. Will.
I will say that we really did, like, we were planning, weren't we, to not start with a favorite. Like, that was the plan.
Who were we planning with in the end? I think we were looking either starting with Lucas or Dustin, one of the ones, because I thought we talk about Mike a lot, for example, so I thought it's predictable. But no one gives enough love to say Lucas or
no,
I
love Lucas.
Lucas is great. We will do one on him. However, today is not his day.
It is,
and it is Will Byers' day, as
it
is
is
every day, and should be every day. But that's just my opinion too.
Yeah, I mean, last week I had a really controversial opinion that the main character of Stranger Things is not actually Elle, it's Will, and that's an opinion that I'm going to continue into this week, and stand strong with my controversial opinion of that. So let's get into this Will Byers character study and a day full of Will.
Oh, is what he deserves. Anyway, before we get into that, we missed something important. Where you can find us. And there are many places you can find us. And those places are Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and did I say Google Podcast? You can't find us there. You can find us on Google Podcast and Stitcher at Hawkins Do You Copy. And then you can find us on our social medias at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Hawkins Podcast, and then Tumblr and YouTube at Hawkins Do You Copy.
There we go.
Actually, we also need to talk about the question of the week.
Yeah.
question of the week this week on Instagram, we were talking about what you want to see in season 4. And because we've obviously done an episode on this before, we've done an episode on our wants and not wants, which you can find from a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago now. Not sure.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between. So we had some of the usual things. So we had everyone wants to see Joyce and Hopper reunited, going on that date to Enzo's. Very fittingly, D&D. The boys play D&D. What Will deserves. It fits. We had everybody wants to rule the world as a song that people want.
Please.
We were saying this, that actually, you know what, it would fit so well, especially with some of the theories we've spoken of before on here, and how they could potentially fit certain characters if they are going down that particular route with certain characters, and what other things? I think just generally good arcs for Steve, figuring out what's going on for Hopper and stuff like that. So thank you everyone for messaging those, and look out next week when we'll have a new question.
Yeah, and come and tell us on our social medias what you want to see from season 4. I want the Byers to be happy.
So do I. I also want Mike to deal with things.
Yeah.
But it's not about Mike today. It's about Will. And let's talk about Will Byers.
Let's go. So, who is Will Byers, we may ask? So, in the original sort of not plot, but kind of like pitch for the show.
It was Montauk.
Yeah, back when it was like still Montauk, there was a show Bible, and you can find the show Bible online, and it's like kind of like the characters and the kind of description. And obviously there are some changes, like Lucas has a different last name, his parents are in the middle of a divorce, and there's differences with Dustin's character and Mike's character as well. So obviously these things are not completely set in stone, like these things change, so it's not to say that this is 100% accurate, but in the very, 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 very original like pitch for Will as a character, it says that he is a sweet, sensitive kid with sexual identity issues. He has only recently come to the conclusion that he does not fit into the 1980s definition of normal. His innocent choices, such as his colorful clothes, prove to be a constant source of bullying. Like Mike, Will escapes through fantasy gaming, where he can be himself uninhibited. He has a close relationship with his mother Joyce, and his brother Jonathan helps raise him in lieu of their father, who abandoned them 4 years ago. So that was the very original Will Byers character description.
Yeah, and I think there's some things we can take from that I think on the whole, I think his seems to be the most, actually no, apart from Mike's, his and Mike's I think seem to be the most accurate to the characters still. It was mainly in terms of like appearance and like subtle bits in personality. I think Lucas was he a bit more stubborn?
I think he was like, because I was reading about it like just then to get the exact description of Will, and it was saying that his parents were in the middle of the divorce, so he kind of acts out a bit more and he's a bit more like angry.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, if we want to go possible theory, that's almost a bit what Mike is in season 2 actually. So it's almost like they've kind of taken bits, they've kind of mixed things up everywhere.
Yeah.
But no, I think on the whole his seems to be pretty, we know that obviously he is still not doing too well. That will probably continue in wherever the Byers have moved to, because none of it is said officially yet. And we know he's got the close relationship with his mum, close relationship with his brother. So yeah, it's nice. I always think it's interesting to look at the show Bibles and do that, because you can really kind of see how the show's evolved and how those characters have changed with casting and things like that. Because I know that, not to bring it onto Mike, but it says in the World Turned Upside Down book that they had to shape his character a bit more because Finn came on and was like, oh, actually, this isn't how we envisioned him at all, but that works.
Yeah.
So it is always good, I think, to look back on things like that. But
no, it is cool.
Yeah, a lot to unpack from the description of Will in there, I think we can say. And often that description is used as quite a... it is used a lot in possible theories of how Will can evolve within the show, to say the least. And we will be addressing it, maybe not right now, we will be addressing it slightly later, but obviously know that it is a show Bible, things can change, and a lot of this is based on obviously some of the theories about this is said within the show and what maybe actors have alluded to outside of that, but it is not technically the pitch for Stranger Things. It is the pitch
for Montauk.
And I think, yeah, whatever your theories are on it, I think that's something to be considered throughout all of this.
Yeah. So do we want to start with season 1? I feel like to really jump into Will Byers as a character and to go into this Will Byers character study, I have to hand over like an imaginary like gauntlet to you as the Will Byers ultimate
defense squad.
Yeah. And say that you absolutely can kick this one off.
Thank you. So we'll start with season 1. We'll go through the season. So season 1, Will, we don't really know him, to say the least. So what we see of him, we see kind of, as we said, kind of fitting with that character description that we see in the Montauk thing, but he's a little different. He's not overly shy, but you can kind of tell that as a group of them, they're quite all reserved. Naturally, they're in Mike's basement for 10 hours playing D&D, and it's
mood.
You know what I mean? Nothing wrong with that, but you can tell they're a close-knit group and they're kind of growing together. Maybe a bit geeky, a bit nerdy, but there's nothing wrong with that. And we can see almost how, I suppose you could argue that you can kind of see how his home life has shaped him, even within that few moment things. He's a little unsure of which way to go, and obviously the whole metaphor of should I stay or should I go is a theme throughout his entire, I'll call it an arc, even though there isn't much of an arc for him within season 1, actually, that when he's in the Upside Down, it's everything he sings, and I don't think it's proven true, but it's a popular theory that obviously when he's in Castle Byers in the Upside Down and he's singing that should I stay or should I go to himself, is almost like that moment of giving up, and it is a kind of case of no, I should stay, to say the least. It is interesting actually, because I think from that moment I'm just going on a complete rant here now, and I'm kind of summing up the whole of season 1, so feel free to interrupt at any point.
I mean, I have some points. I was going to say, like, I definitely think that the should I stay or should I go moment is really reflective of him kind of like having that decision. But I also think it says a lot that he takes a song that Jonathan played him as like a bonding thing, and also to distract him from the fact that Joyce and Lonnie were arguing, and he's singing that in the Upside Down. Like, he's taking comfort from that. I think that says a lot about his relationship with Jonathan, that's the thing that's kind of giving him that comfort in the Upside Down.
Exactly.
And I feel like people talk a lot about the song and a lot about the fact that he's singing the song in the symbol of like, should I stay or should I go? But I don't think a lot of people talk about the fact that he obviously is trying to take comfort from his brother in this situation. In Castle Byers as well, which we know that Jonathan and Will built together. Exactly. Which I just think is really nice, and I think that's a really kind of like sweet moment. And obviously we also can dive kind of into the theory and idea of why was Will taken and how did Will survive in the Upside Down for a week.
We can. Going back to Castle Byers for a second.
Yes.
Obviously we know that Castle Byers is quite a safe space for Will. As you said, that he built it with Jonathan, and I know that the D&D comics contradict that slightly, but we are taking that as a happy mistake.
Claim the D&D comic.
Yeah. So yeah, he built up with Jonathan. I believe it was the night that his dad left. I think they say, the night his dad left. And so from then it's filled with anything that keeps him happy. We see that in season 3, actually, when we have that kind of shot as it goes round. All his drawings are on the wall. I think he's got a paint set in there. And just the idea that he's kind of like going out there, and that's kind of like his little space. I think doesn't Radagast is the password. Or Radagast, I should say, not Gast. So he, in Lord of the Rings canon, so to speak, according to the very reliable Lord of the Rings wiki, is concerned himself with like the safety of like plants and animals, and it's very fitting that it's within the forest and it's his safe space within the Upside Down, where we know that plant life and animal life just does not really thrive and exist. And I think that's why it's such a shame when in season 3 you see it kind of destroyed. And I know it's a metaphor for his childhood as well, and it's kind of like, okay, this is the last bit that I can't just almost like be safe and just play safe in my little bubble anymore. It's like, I need to grow up, so to speak, even though I have some opinions on that matter, but we'll get to that later. But you know what I mean, that it's just such an important thing. I think we need to talk more about Castle Byers, essentially. That is my opinion on Castle Byers as a whole.
No, I agree. Like, we have Castle Byers and we talk about it and we know that it's there and stuff, but I feel like it's kind of something which is taken for granted, in that sense, the fact that it's always there and we know that that's like Will's safe space, but we don't talk about kind of the actual symbolism of that and what that means. So I agree. I feel like we need to talk more about Castle Byers.
Yes. Justice to Castle Byers. That should be the new hashtag after season 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there we go. Back to more of Will in season 1 rather than his little den in the woods. I think it's him and his character is interesting throughout the season, because as we said earlier, you see little parts of it, and then we kind of still see little bits of his personality, and it's interesting contrasting that to say then season 2.
Yeah.
Because we see him that actually he's quite, I don't know how to describe it. He's not, cheeky is the wrong word, but almost a bit cunning, I guess.
Yeah, he's got a good sense of humor, and
quite dry.
Yeah, and you see that in the Halloween comic, which is like the only comic which I'm like, this is 100% canon, like this is like complete that. And I really like that you get to see his sense of humor in that, and obviously you see that in some of the flashbacks with Joyce, and the way that like and I don't think people talk a lot about his sense of humor, but it's actually a really good sense of humor.
Even that scene when he's riding away in that race with Dustin, and Dustin's like, oh, I'll race you back and do that, and immediately he just kind of sets off. And it's like, okay, cool, and then he's just gone then.
And he's like, I'll take your X-Men, like that kind of
I think a lot of people, obviously, and quite rightfully so, talk about it was a 7 on the Demogorgon, it got me, because of that kind of is then thrown. It's not a throwback, you know what I mean? You see that later on when he's in the hospital bed and he says it again. I think that scene itself, there's a lot to unpick. Why does the light flash above Mike's house? Why is he having electrical issues within his house anyway that day? But yeah, Will Byers has a personality, and I feel like we need to talk a lot more about the fact that why you are pulling a face.
I've just realised the telly doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No. Are you okay? Do you need
they're having electrical issues in the house that day.
Yeah.
Oh, Will has powers, man.
I would like it. I'd like it to be a thing. But I don't know. I still stand by my I don't think it'll be happening now, but I would be interested to know if that kind of idea that it is sort of like a loop that never ends and Will was meant to be taken and everything, if that is kind of a reference to that. But that's just my theory that I would like to be true. Duffers, if you're listening, that's a pointer for season 5. Anyway, they do. The entire day there is electrical issues. And I think they say don't they say it's like a storm or something is coming?
Yeah, because the grid, like that night, there's like electrical issues in Hawkins, I think. Hopper, when it goes over his telly, I'm sure the news is reporting on it. And obviously, I know that we can't take all of the books and the bonus content as complete canon, but I've just finished the Rebel Robin book, and there will be a podcast episode on that. But she mentions about there being electrical issues in Hawkins that night as well. But I find it interesting that that's happening because the light flickers right above Will, and the fact that the telly is not working as well, and Will's been in that house all day. And then why Will? Why does that Demogorgon go for Will? Why does it know to do that? And why why, like, then no blood was spilt. It's not like the Barb situation, or even later on with Jonathan and Nancy when they cut their palms intentionally and there's blood and it attracts it. It goes for Will completely out of nowhere. You like, why Will?
See, a lot of people, I've seen this said, I think on Tumblr a few times, is that, did it think he was Elle? Because obviously that could be an explanation for the electrical stuff going on that we know.
Yeah.
Is it that night she opened the gate?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of things would have been happening around the same time anyway. So it could be a case of, you know, maybe the Demogorgon did mistake Elle for Will, but to me it just seems a bit, I don't know. It doesn't quite line up in my head, because not that they wouldn't look alike in the dark, but the Demogorgon would have known. I mean, I don't know how sentient, completely it is. But surely if you set your sights on Elle, you will know the difference.
Yeah. You know what you're hunting.
Yeah, exactly.
What
you would go, oh, okay. I mean, there's a theory in that in itself, with Elle and Will. But there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But like Joyce has some kind of like intuition.
Yeah.
So like, what if they are, I don't want to be like, to use like Star Wars terms, what if they're like force sensitive? What if it's like that family have more of a, because I just find it, the weirdest thing for me is, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, the Demogorgon could have mistaken Will for Elle. You know, the electrical problems could be because of Elle. Fair enough. But then what happens? Why is Will able to control the electrics from the Upside Down? And why does Will survive for a whole week in the Upside Down? Barb dies immediately. Hopper, when he goes in there in season 2, is like, what? He's in there for like a day and he's like almost killed.
Vines have just overtaken him.
Yeah, exactly. Why? Why is then a 12-year-old kid able to survive in this world where everything is dead and poisonous? And why is he able to communicate with Joyce? Why does he know how to do that? How is he able to kind of evade the Demogorgon in the Upside Down? I don't know. I find
especially when the Mind Flayer uses him in season 2.
Yeah,
I just there's something going on, and I mean, we said before that I think there is more to the fact that he can still feel.
Yes,
there is no reason why he should still be able to feel it in season 3, and I'll be interested to know if he can. I mean, I presume he can still in season 4, especially since when we're living together, I feel like there'll be stuff going on there.
Power siblings, power siblings, power siblings.
Please. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I need to know. But we are on season 1, Will.
Right yes. Now. But no, I really agree with you, the sense of humor and kind of his personality. And I think that the Duffers did a really good job. And I think that Noah Schnapp did a really good job, in the sense that obviously Will is not in season 1 that much, but from what you see of him, you do get to see that personality kind of shine through. And I really liked that.
Root for him, even though he's not in it. And I think that's a testament to both, obviously, Noah's acting, but also how the Duffers have written the character. That
exactly
that moment when you're actually genuinely not. I mean, there's 2 moments, isn't there? The one where you see his body. I mean, you presume it's not him because there is still like 4 or 5 episodes left. But you know, you kind of really feel for them in that moment, especially seeing especially Mike's reaction when he goes home and hugs his mum, and then Joyce's reaction after, and kind of just like Lucas and Dustin's be like, no, it's him, and just the way they react in there. And then obviously later on when they actually find him and Hopper's trying to bring him back with the CPR, and you don't quite know if it's going to work, and the moment he kind of like opens his eyes, it's like, oh, Will. He's alive. And it's just, you know what I mean, it's just moments like that. It's just really nice that you do root for him as a character. And I just think this is a testament both to the writing and to the acting.
Yeah. And I do like that. I think that kind of you do watch season 1 and think we need to try and find him. But actually you can get so much of his personality from season 1, which I don't think people talk a lot about.
No.
But I really like season 1. I really like the way that his character is in season 1, and kind of how you get to know him and how he kind of tells us a story of who he is without even seeing much of him. I feel like as well, obviously we did say about some of the stuff that was in the show Bible, and there are some theories, and kind of I think that's something in season 1 that people take from as well, is the way that Joyce describes him to Hopper when he goes missing. And obviously she uses a not very nice word, because she talks about the way that Lonnie describes him, but then he's also at school bullied for the same thing. And it's interesting they kept that in season 1.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, you know, kids at school, they're not great, and
they're mean.
Yeah. And I mean, in general, you know, I personally was never bullied and called that kind of thing, but I know that people in school, primary school, secondary school, all of that kind of thing were called that kind of thing, when necessarily weren't.
I was.
Yeah, there you go. And I think so, obviously, not that you can't take anything from what the bullies are saying, but bullies are bullies, like the same way they call a Mike Frogface.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. But I think the one that's more interesting, if we are going to go with his character, that is Joyce's reaction, and that she kind of just dismisses it, and like he's missing, that's what he is. And I think that's really nice, actually, to see her like do that, because obviously we'll talk about this in kind of like themes of the 80s and stuff, that the 80s probably wasn't the best time. You know, there's so much history and everything going on, and I think just for her to kind of just dismiss it as like, hey, no, what matters that he's missing and he's my son. And I think just seeing her reaction to that, that's what's the more interesting, I don't want to say proof of that, because obviously we don't know anything, but if you're going to take anything from that as evidence, that's what I'm looking for, then I think that's the more interesting.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just find it interesting that that was included. Like you said, the bully thing, kind of, that's just, kids are mean and can be really mean. But I think the way that Joyce sort of talks about it and the way that she handles it, I feel like that the Duffers keeping that in from taking that from the show Bible, keeping that in, and the way that that's said, I feel like you said, that's really interesting when it comes to kind of that kind of thing when it comes to Will, really.
Because it is something that does kind of continue through in the seasons, which we will get to when we talk about the other seasons. But yeah, we're going to keep things neutral and provide before and against. Let's say that.
Yeah. Season 2.
Let's talk season 2. Season 2. I mean, we did a whole thing on season 2 last week, so you can begin. You can go this time.
No, season 2 is just the best season. It's the best season, and I think that Will's character in season 2 is really good, completely outside of he is possessed by the Mind Flayer. I think that you get to see a really interesting exploration of his personality and who he is in season 2, because you've got kind of, you know, this kid, it's been a year, he is still really dealing with everything. You see bits of his personality kind of shine through, in the sense of kind of who he was, I want to say, like before, like when they're in the car at the start and Joyce is like, you know, if you need to come home, do this, and he's like, don't all go back home, I know, like I need to go. And the way that he is with Jonathan, and saying about Jonathan and going trick-or-treating alone, and
the Bowie and Kenny Rogers moment.
I think like you get to see those, and it's really nice. And even when he's talking to Mike after they've been trick-or-treating, and the way that he's describing what's happening, I feel like those are elements of his personality that really kind of shine through before obviously the possession. But I really liked that. I really liked that. And I do think season 2 is kind of, you do really get to see who he is, which is really nice. That we do get those moments before he's possessed by a entity from a parallel dimension.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we said this last time as well, that the Byers in general are kind of, they're not necessarily trying to keep everything together, but there's kind of an air of everything's fine. You see that a lot with Will in season 2, especially in that beginning bit, and arguably the beginning few little bits of season 3.
Yeah.
Before the argument, so. You kind of see him kind of just being like, everything's fine, everything's okay, I'm completely normal. And like you see the way he's in school as he picks up the zombie boy picture. I say picture, it's the cutout of the newspaper with zombie boy written on it, which is actually on my phone case.
I was literally just about to say that's your phone case.
It is. For those watching on YouTube, there is my phone case. Just about hiding it behind my microphone. So yeah, you see that, and just the way he's like keeping everything in, especially, and even with Dart, before the possession field things, that he kind of keeps that quiet. And obviously he spoke to Mike before and said like, this is everything that's kind of going on that I'm between, but he still says don't tell the others.
Yeah.
And that moment with Dart when he's like,
we don't,
and then tells Mike that way.
No, 100%. We don't talk enough, as in we as in a collective Stranger Things fandom, as it were, talk enough about the way that he only discloses specific information at specific times.
Yeah. He's quite, I don't want to say quite clever or calculating with that, but it does make you wonder if maybe that's something that goes back before. And like, if you think about his whole journey in the Upside Down and knowing, okay, I need to be here. If I do this here, I can be safe here, and do that and do that. He's quite logical with the way he talks, and it's just very much this, not this benefits me now, or you know what I mean? It's not that wording that I quite mean, but it's very much, this is almost like a need to know thing.
Yeah.
And this will benefit me to do this now, and you can help me by doing this. And I think, yeah, I agree. I don't think that's something that's talked about a lot. We're just, I don't know, the way that we see sometimes Will in the greater phantom of things frustrates me slightly.
Yes.
I think often he's seen as, oh, it's poor Will, and oh,
soft boy
Will. Yeah, there we go. That kind of mentality. And I think actually he's kind of really not. And that, yeah, he is more sensitive. I will, he is a more sensitive kid. He's a bit more shy. And I think, he is, actually that he's comfortable around his friends. He's not really gonna put himself out there. But when he's with them, he's not that kind of person.
No.
That I myself am someone that, if you know me, I will open up a lot more, and that's just how I work. I don't do well with new people in general, that I'm very closed off in that sense. So, but I would not describe myself as like soft. I wouldn't do that. So I can, I don't know. I mean, I've always said I quite relate to Will in that kind of sense anyway, like the mentality. I mean, that was the first I said to you, but I saw season 3, I was like, I just recognize him. And I don't know, it does frustrate me a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go.
No, I completely agree. Like, I do feel like he is sort of taken as like, oh, this happened, poor Will, and we've got to look after Will. And I think, well, actually, Will does a really good job at looking out for himself too. And he knows what he needs. He knows what's going on. Like, he's okay. Like, he's good at knowing those things. And I think, like,
I mean, he's
not okay, but he's okay in the sense of he knows what is best at specific times.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, he won't stay closed off, if that makes sense as well. Like, if something's happening, he's not going to be like, well, I just won't talk about it at all and I'll just let this happen. Like the minute he thinks, okay, this needs to be something which is sorted, he'll be like, no, like we need to sort this out, kind of thing. And I just feel like the kind of nuances of his personality and the way that he is with certain things is just really just overlooked. I think, like you said, he's just kind of soft boy Will Byers, and we don't talk about like the other aspects of his personality, which are absolutely not those things. Like you can be sensitive and closed off and shy around specific people, but that doesn't put you in a, like, you don't need to have like blankets thrown on you so that you're protected from the world every so often. You just sort of need, yeah.
I mean, and admittedly, he does probably tell people maybe 5 steps too late.
Yeah.
So, like for example, the moment with the moment when he runs away and Mike takes him back to his house and he tells him everything. He wouldn't have done that if Mike hadn't been like, I'm literally going to take you home.
Yeah.
And so it would be a case of, if this had been solved earlier, I mean, if this had been spoken about earlier, yeah, we wouldn't have had a season. But even though that it wouldn't, it could have been addressed before. And then when he's drawn the picture, and Joyce is like, "Is this the thing you saw?" And then he finally says, "Actually, yeah, it was." If he'd have done that earlier as well, because I think doesn't he say it's nothing? Because she sees it earlier, doesn't she?
Yeah, she sees it. He's like, just something I'm drawing, when he's wearing the Ghostbusters costume and she goes to sew something back onto it, get some tape or something for his like proton blaster thing.
Yeah. So you knew that he could have said that earlier too, but he didn't. And in season 3, when they are in the cinema and Mike asks him, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah."
It's
Once
like,
again, we literally would have had
no.
a season because that was episode 1. But no, he's not.
No, but like it makes me wonder how much of that is him pretending everything's okay, which I think would also say a lot about him as a character.
Yeah.
But then also the other half protecting other people, which again says a lot about him as a character. And I think it's a mixture of both of those things, which determines why he doesn't always disclose information. I think particularly with Joyce, because he knows that she's been through so much. And I think we talk a lot about Jonathan and the way Jonathan kind of had to step up and be like a pseudo father for Will because Lonnie left, and kind of Jonathan has to work as well and to help with the bills and everything. But I also think we don't talk a lot about how Will definitely is aware of those things, and I think he's very careful in what he says to Joyce in some situations, and how he worries about her. Like in season 3, he says, like, I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
I think we don't acknowledge that he's very, very, very aware of the struggles that she also has. You know, kids are, you know, he's younger than Jonathan, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. Like, he's aware of what's going on. He's in a house where there was arguments and arguments and arguments. He knows his dad has left. He knows what's happened. And I think that he is aware of what Joyce is going through. And I think that's probably why he doesn't want, you know, because it's America as well. So like the medical bills, he would have had loads of medical bills for him being in hospital, and she takes him to places for other tests to see why he's having episodes and stuff. And I'm sure that he's probably aware of the medical bills and the fact that, you know, they don't have lots and lots and lots of money in the first place. And he probably doesn't want to say to her, yes, I'm seeing this big weird entity thing, because it's just going to freak her out and it's just going to stress her out more than she already is. And I think that says a lot about him as a character, that he's sort of willing to kind of take it on his own shoulders and ignore it rather than tell her about it.
No, I agree. I think, yeah, and it's one thing as well, is that, as you said, that he's kind of grown up seeing all of that's going on, and arguably and I know that kind of season 3, he doesn't want to grow up and wants to kind of just be kids, because that's, let's be honest, that's what they are.
Literally
And
14.
yeah. And that, but then I do wonder if it's kind of a case of, has he grown up too quickly? I mean, we see in going back to season 1, but he completely knows how to load that gun like it's no issue whatsoever. He knows exactly how this works, how that works. Arguably the way he actually runs away from that, it's very calculated, and it's not just like a simple game of hide and seek, so to speak. It's, you know what I mean? It's, I don't know. I mean, it's,
maybe he's had practice.
I mean, we do know that is something. Yeah, we do know that's something that has happened. That we know that Lonnie used to take Jonathan and Will out to, I mean, we have the shoot a rabbit thing, didn't we? With Jonathan, he didn't want to do it. And yeah, I would be interested to know. I mean, it's definitely not going to come up in season 4, but I would be interested to know a bit more of how Lonnie was with them. I think it would just, it'd be interesting to get into.
No, it would. And I think obviously, like he's had practice with that, but also could he have had practice with hiding, which is really sad to kind of think about.
See, I'm always mixed, because yes, I think Lonnie probably definitely wasn't great to him by the sound of things, but I do wonder if with him as well there was kind of a sense of, I need to impress. Because I just think, like, the way, as I said, like he loads that gun, for example, I wonder if there was almost a thing of, I need to be good for you.
And he wants to go to that baseball game with him, and Jonathan's like, do you even like baseball? And he's like, I could have.
Yeah, and like that kind of thing as well. It's almost a thing of just wanting to match his dad's standards for him, which Jonathan probably didn't quite do, because he couldn't do this and couldn't do that. I think that's something that isn't spoken about enough either, actually, how Lonnie and Jonathan would have been a thing. Maybe in Jonathan's character.
Yeah, we'll go into that. I would like to go into that. I think that's important to talk about.
Yeah, so I do wonder almost if it would be the opposite, where he would just be kind of like, really, apart from when they're arguing, like, I want to know you because you're that. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. He never talks about him. I find that interesting. He never talks about him. Jonathan does. Yeah. Jonathan does it in every season, I think. At least once.
Yeah.
Will never talks about him. Will never talks about his dad.
No. Yeah. Interesting.
He never brings him up, does he?
No, he doesn't. No, I don't think he actually ever does.
Like, Jonathan brings him up to Will.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, but then also Jonathan talks about his dad outside of that. He'll talk about his dad to Nancy. But Will never brings him up.
Season 4. Who knows?
Perhaps. But no, I think he's season 2. Obviously, the obvious thing is the possession. But I think looking at his character before that, you get to see a really interesting insight into who Will is, and I really appreciate that.
We've spoken a lot about the possession storyline. I think literally last week we spoke a lot about the possession storyline, because you can't really talk about season 2 without talking about it. And yeah, like as I said, it's interesting to kind of see when it's Will, when it's Mind Flayer, who's coming through at what time, because then that's really calculating in itself, naturally, because that's what the Mind Flayer do. Is interesting as well. Interesting parallel. The Mind Flayer likes to hide. Will knows how to hide.
Is Will the Mind Flayer?
Oh, I hate that. I want it so badly. They're not going to give it, but I want it so badly. I think literally it was in episode 1 or 2 of this.
Yeah, we spoke about that.
What is the Mind Flayer, please?
Yeah.
But what an introduction. But no, I think I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of things I do find interesting about that whole arc. But yeah, I think one important thing to take from that. I think one important moment during the possession actually taken over that, which really does show you Will's character as well, is that ending part when they're all talking to him in the shed and he's doing the Morse code and he tells them to close the gate. And first of all, how does he know what the gate is?
Yeah.
I mean, presumably he's been filled in by everyone, or Elle has spoken to him in some way, because I mean, from what we see in the visions, you know what I mean? The oh my god, what is the word called? What is the word called? The place where Elle goes in her mind.
The void.
The void. That's the word. In the void, we only see her checking in on Mike and things like that. We never see her checking in on Will. So I would presume that maybe she's done that at some point. So it could be that she's kind of seen him there and been like, okay, I need to see what's going on. Because as she turns up in season 2, obviously towards the end, is like, can I see him?
Yeah.
And there's arguably no reason why she should know something's gone on with Will.
No, there's absolutely no reason she shouldn't know that at all. So the fact that she immediately is like, can I see him? Says, we don't talk about that. We do not talk about the fact that she should not know. That is weird.
She shouldn't know who he is in season 1 either.
No.
But there we go. But no, the moment when he says close the gate, and he knows he's going to die if that happens. He knows he will die if they close the gate, because the mind flayer is in him. He's not going to come out of that alive. And at that point, he's probably so far gone that he's not coming out of that. And we see that obviously with Billy in season 3. And I just think, what a character to actually be 13 in season 2.
Yeah.
And kind of to be like, you know what? This is the only way to stop it. So stop it. And also, I obviously know that ultimately they don't do that. But no 13-year-old should be making that choice.
No. And he makes it all on his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And that, yeah.
Which is also a kind of a parallel to Elle in season 1. So many Will and Elle parallels.
Power siblings.
But no, I love Will Byers.
We didn't talk enough about the fact that he was so willing to sacrifice himself. Like,
yeah.
Will. Season 3, however, the Duffers said, enough of that. No Will Byers. And might as well not have been in it after episode 3.
Honestly, I know we've spoken about this on here before, but me just sitting there, episode 3, after that had all gone down, and be like, okay, so we're going to resolve this soon. Or, okay, so he's going to do this soon. Just didn't happen. Anyway, but there is stuff we can talk about. I also think, going back to season 2 quickly, if we're going with our evidence for certain things, I'm going to avoid the big one, the big arc throughout season 3, which is the popular theory of season 2, which is a popular theory online for people as providing evidence as to why the show Bible is correct. But there was a removed scene in season 2 at the Snowball.
Yes.
That, looking at season 3, could also be a thing of, this is setting up what his arc is going to be in this season, when he's going to not necessarily be as included in much. It could also provide evidence of that, but there is a moment in season 2 when they're all dancing, and it does say Will's dancing with the cute girl. It's awkward, but his eyes aren't on her. They are on blah 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 blah, and which obviously is a big thing online.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I feel like if it is the case, and I do feel like it's something that really could be explored.
Yeah.
I also, okay, right. I also think that it could genuinely be that he just has had so much like so much happened to him that he's not had that time to kind of, you know, his friends have gotten girlfriends, but he's been dealing with literally being possessed. So it's, you know, he's had a bit of a different experience to everyone else. However, I do think that there could be a really, really strong possibility that that is something that they go down, just because there has been hints and things dropped in all the seasons beforehand that I feel like if they then turned around and didn't do it, it would feel a bit like, why did you then drop all of these hints to then not kind of follow through with something? But I definitely do feel like that that scene, and obviously it was cut out, but that being something which was in the script originally is quite interesting, and obviously does link into then who says what in season 3. You know, that could have been any member of the party.
See, it is an interesting scene for me, because obviously, as we said, it was something that was ultimately cut out of season 2, and maybe it was something they thought we can use later on, and arguably it kind of is in season 3. Obviously there are different contexts for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the big obvious one. It could have literally been like, it is a sense of, I don't like that your attention is now only there, which we do see in season 3 when he's a lot more, you guys are literally just always hanging out with your girlfriend, you're always doing this, you're always doing that, and we don't have time to play D&D, and we're not having time to do this anymore. And so it could be a tie-in to that, but you know, it's an argument for it either way.
It is. I personally would like it if they went down that route, just because obviously there has been lots of things that have been dropped, and I feel like it would kind of be like, oh, okay, we'll kind of hint at things but not actually explore it. But I really liked the way that they did Robin's coming out, so I feel like it is something that they can do well, which would be good. It doesn't also necessarily mean that like that's the route they're going to go down. You know, there is a theory as well that Will is asexual, which is something I wrote like a whole blog post about on my Tumblr, not the Hawkins Tumblr, but my Tumblr. But I feel like that is something which, you know, could be explored, and there's lots of different feelings there. And obviously, like I said, the show Bible isn't what necessarily is the case, but the idea that he's realized that he doesn't fit into the 1980s kind of standard, and obviously the obvious one in season 3 is the argument and the "it's not my fault you don't like girls" scene, which everyone kind of picks up on. But for me, and I've said this to you a lot, one of the scenes in season 3 which actually in my opinion says a lot more is when in the morning in episode 1 where Joyce rubs lipstick off of Jonathan's cheek and he's like, gross, and she's like, you're not gonna think it's gross when you fall in love, and he's like, I'm not gonna fall in love, and like he mutters it, and you can look at that in the sense of that's just a teenager being like, ugh, no, don't, like, I'm not interested. But also the way that he says it kind of suggests to me possibly like, I'm not going to fall in love because the way that I would is something which is frowned upon, so I'm just not going to go near it because I can't be open about it the way that other people can. And I also find the way that Joyce says okay quite interesting, almost like she kind of knows, or she kind of suspects or something. And it's not as well, like in the argument scene, it's not even the words "it's not my fault you don't like girls,"
it's his face after.
It's his face afterwards. It's Will's face afterwards, but it's also Mike's face afterwards. It's almost like Mike's thought, of all the things, like that was sort of like salt in the wounds, really, rather than just being an offhand comment, you know.
I don't know one person didn't watch that scene and see his face and didn't think, I think everyone was like, don't do that.
Like, of all the things, Mike, don't say that. And I think, wasn't the line changed? Didn't the line originally wasn't like, it's not my fault you don't like girls yet? Like,
there were many different versions,
but they went with
that one.
They went with it's not my fault you don't like girls. And I think though all of that says more to me than just the line itself.
Yeah.
It's more kind of the actions and decisions that went into that line that says more to me. But I feel like that would be something, you know, if that is something that is obviously going to be explored in later seasons, probably a lot of season 4, to be honest, if there is only 2 seasons
He's got
left
time.
as well.
It's just Will and Elle alone.
It's just Will and Elle that we're just kind of assuming that, you know, there'll be 2 more seasons. So I don't know, I would kind of like that, because I feel like it is something which has been dropped with his personality, like with who he is since season 1, and it would kind of feel like a bit of a cop out to then just you know, watch season 4 start and they're like, Will's like, hi, this is my girlfriend.
Yeah, I don't know, regardless, I can't see that. And I think one thing, if we are going to take the show Bible, let's take the show Bible as canon, just for this example, it says sexual identity, like, issues, right?
Issues, yeah, sexual identity issues.
It doesn't specify what the issue is.
No, it doesn't say it doesn't say Will is gay. Like I said, it could be anything. Like he just might not be interested in anything. Like the asexuality thing is like a huge like, you know, that's like a huge possibility. And also, like, people don't seem to understand that, like, you can like, people online kind of like, well, no, because if he's asexual then he can't be gay. And you're like, well, you literally can. Like, you literally can be that. You know, like, that's absolutely completely true. So it I feel like people don't kind of acknowledge the kind of the nuances in sexual identity issues, you know, like it's a lot. And when you're trying to figure that out, especially, you know, trying to figure that out now when things are more accepting is really hard. So to go back to the 80s where there was so much, and, you know, in like a lot of states it was still illegal, and, like, you know, there's so many different things that he's kind of dealing with, on top of then also having been possessed by someone from an alternate dimension, and then having been to said ultimate dimension, you know, like alternate is the word that I meant there.
That's the word.
Alternate dimension. But yeah, I feel like that's something that's sort of not explored about, but obviously big theory, hinted at throughout the seasons. And sort of, that's sort of where his arc died in season 3, really, wasn't it? Because, you know, after that he just sort of touches his neck a lot.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered that topic now. That's our opinions on that part of the show Bible. It's, I don't know what else more we can say about it, to be honest, until later seasons come out. I think you can dig and you can pick at things. It might be canon, it might not be canon. It doesn't really change anything. Whatever makes you feel, if you relate to that part of his character,
exactly,
with that, if it doesn't turn out to be true, but you think, actually, you know what, this fits better in my head and I relate to that because I see Will as this, or I don't see Will as that, but I can see why people would, then that's ultimately what matters, I think.
Exactly.
And I think let's all just be peaceful about it and keep calm.
Exactly. That's why we do not talk about shipping on here, because, you know, just let people think and do what they want as long as they are not hurting anyone else.
Exactly. But season 3 of people being hurt, Mike hurt Will. Well, in fairness, they all did. I think season 3 is an interesting one for Will in general, because he doesn't necessarily go back to how he was at the start of season 2, but you can tell from the start that something isn't quite right. He's not as overly open about things. He's trying to, like, bring people back and cling people back to what, you know, they used to do. And I don't think he's necessarily in the wrong.
No, I would be so annoyed at that whole situation. I've been in that situation where you're trying to do something and people laugh at you. Like that scene where they're laughing at him when he's trying to play D&D, like, really hurt, because that exact thing has happened to me. Like, I felt his emotions in that scene.
Yeah,
that was awful.
That was horrible, just that entire thing. And it's just because it was one of those things that we'd seen the pictures of before, obviously, because they released a few promo ones. It was like, oh my gosh, why is he sitting there wearing a wizard hat? This is gonna be really embarrassing. But then actually, when it got into the thing, you watched it, you're like, I absolutely hate what Mike and Lucas are doing right now. It's just, it's just, anyway. But yeah, he's kind of holding back a little bit, and just he wants things to be back to where they were. And we kind of, I don't know, I guess there's kind of an overarching thing with all of them really in season 3. They don't necessarily all follow the same progression character wise, but like Hopper's letter kind of sums it up at the end. So I know the Hopper's letter is obviously written for Mike and Elle, but there's things like, I wish we could just go back to the way things were. I don't want things to change. And it's focusing on the different characters, the different points. And I think that is kind of the, as I just said, literally just the overarching message of season 3, that things are changing and that things have to change. And even though people don't want them to, and I think, you know, that's what growing up is, and coming out of the cave. That's what he says, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're out of the cave.
You're out of the cave. The hurt is good because you're out of the cave.
Yeah. And just
I really think that was season 3. Like, I think that obviously this like summer of love and romance and this like massive fireworks and this celebration is just a massive cover for the fact that no one's okay. No one's okay. And I think everyone's a bit more subdued, Will being one of them. Like, his character in season 3, he is a lot more kind of reserved, and I wonder, I'd like to think that he hasn't just been written out, like they would just like, we'll just forget about Will, but maybe it's like a symbol of like how he's feeling, and kind of he feels like that. He feels like he's kind of pushed back, and you're not seeing more of him because he's actively kind of keeping himself from that, if you know what I mean, because he's trying to figure stuff out, and he doesn't want to, you know, it could genuinely be just like a really interesting exploration on the Duffers' part, where they were like, we're going to not have him be in it as much because it's going to show him as a person that we are learning less about him because of how he's feeling right now.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. I think I said it before, like right towards the beginning. It's almost like, is it almost meant to be like a metaphor for, are we the audience, like Will in that scenario, that are we kind of not really, we're kind of watching from the outside, are we watching through his eyes almost, that as he's kind of seeing everything go on around him, and just, you know, all that kind of thing. And I don't know, it's odd, because I think Will coming out of season 2, if you think of it as well, has literally just got out of the mind flayer being out of him, and it's almost things like, okay, well now I need to do everything that everyone else got to do the last couple of years, or in his mind anyway, because obviously things have not quite, you know, things have not been okay for Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and I mean, Elle's been in a special scenario where she was inside for a year, so I'm not going to include her in that, but you know what I mean, that things have not been okay for them either. But
no.
In his mind, it's kind of like, yeah, but you didn't go through what I did when I literally had this taken from me. So just let me have this one thing, and we can carry on as normal, and we can play D&D, and we can do this, and we can do that. And yeah, and I think that's why the Castle Byers scene it hurts a lot for a lot of people, because it's kind of like him, I don't want to say it's him giving up, but it also kind of is.
Yeah. It's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I think we can all relate to that at some point, of that feeling of like, you have just reached that moment of like, nah.
Yeah. And he knocks it down with a baseball bat, which is a callback to season 1, when he's like, do you even like baseball? And he knocks it down with,
he destroyed
that he had his father.
Exactly. And he destroyed it. He destroyed the thing that he made when his dad left with something his dad tried to get him to like.
Yeah. Poor Will.
Essentially, poor Will. We love Will, and he deserves a break.
He does, but not in the way that season 3 gave the break.
No, he deserves all the screen time, but a good time and a break.
It wouldn't be the Byers as a general then, would it?
No.
And see, this is the thing. I don't think he's going to get that in season 4. Like, he's
no, absolutely not. No, he's having an awful time.
Yeah, and then probably will have an equally awful time in season 5, as well. But
yeah, Emily's biggest fear is that they're going to kill him off.
Absolutely, I've just got it in my head that he is going to.
We had a FaceTime the other day. I say the other day, like, we don't FaceTime every day, but one of our FaceTimes the other day was the first time that I really realized, like, if they kill him, like, you will not be okay. like that was like the first time where it really kind of hit me that I was like, I really hope they don't kill him off. One, because I also do not want him to die, but also like as someone that had to sit through and watch my comfort character since I was 13, Tony Stark, get killed, and I've still not recovered. For your sake, I just Matt and Ross Duffer, if you listen to the Hawkins Do Copy podcast, can you keep Will Byers and Joyce Byers alive, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's our open letter to Matt and Ross Duffer and or Sean Levy.
I felt that was an expose, so I'd like to clear up. It was just a lot of, he is going to die, isn't he? A lot of that. It was a lot of that. I wasn't weeping or anything.
No, there was no weeping.
But
no like
tears from me.
I mean, if you want an expose, I'll expose myself. In those FaceTimes, sometimes I watch films, and if I ever watch Endgame or It Chapter 2, I turn the film off before Tony dies and before Eddie dies to pretend that doesn't happen. There you go. I've exposed myself. We've both had an expose.
There we go.
Yeah. I have a question for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
Which season is your favourite Will Byers?
2.
Correct.
I was already going to answer that before you even finished the question. I was just ready to go like 2.
Season 2.
Well, I think it's annoying because I think season 3 could have been good for Will. And in some ways it was. I think the scenes we got from him in season 3, like I talk about the Castle Byers scene a lot and it's like, oh, how dare that happen? But actually like that scene itself is just so good. And
It's
like,
so good.
It's
done so well.
And even like the moment when everyone's saying goodbye at the end and like the hugs, I think also something that people don't talk about is his friendship with Lucas.
No,
Lucas's friendship is so nice, and like
I know,
just like the little moments, like that hug at the end where he's just weeping, and you know what I mean. I think, yeah. So season 2 wins, but I will give a small credit to season 3 for episode 3.
I love that as well. Like he destroys it in a storm, and it was built in a storm.
Yeah. Parallels.
Yeah, I also agree season 2, but I will give a shout out to season 1 because I really love his humor and his like little like dry humor.
These little bits.
That is your Will Byers character study. I hope that everyone enjoyed the first of these character studies. Please
I had a great time.
I had a great time. I would love to know, like on our social medias and stuff, who you would like us to character study next. That would be great.
Yeah, and obviously on Instagram, keep an eye out for our questions of the weeks and things like that. They're also, all previous ones are being saved as a story highlight as well, so you can check in with previous answers. Come and talk to us on the social medias. We have a great time.
Yes, exactly. Where are those social medias?
Those social medias. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you where the podcasts are, and those places are Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. You can find that at Hawkins Do You Copy. And then the social medias. Yeah. And then the social medias are Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Hawkins Podcast. And then Tumblr and YouTube at Hawkins Do You Copy.
Thank you for listening to episode 37 of the Hawkins Do You Copy podcast, and we will see you next week. Over and out.
Hawkins, do you copy?